What if one of the most important trade routes on Earth suddenly shut down? Not in theory, not someday, but right now. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait carries billions of dollars in goods every single day. Oil, food, electronics, the backbone of global trade. And if it closes, ships stop, oil surges, markets react. And the effects don't stay in the Middle East. They hit your gas prices, your groceries, your entire economy. So the real question is, what actually happens next? The Bab el-Mandeb Strait is one of the most important choke points on Earth. It connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. And more importantly, it connects Asia to Europe through the Suez Canal. Nearly 10 to 12% of global trade passes through here. Millions of barrels of oil, massive container ships, entire supply chains, and yet it's only about 20 miles wide at its narrowest point. A single disruption here can ripple across the entire global economy. Now imagine this. The strait is no longer safe. Missile threats, drone attacks, naval conflict. Shipping companies start pulling out. Insurance companies raise rates overnight. And suddenly, traffic slows, then stops. Not because it's physically blocked, but because it's too dangerous to pass. And that's all it takes. The first thing that breaks is shipping. Ships that normally pass through the Suez Canal now have to reroute around Africa. That adds 10, 15, even 20 days to delivery times. Fuel costs increase, labor costs increase, everything slows down. And when global trade slows, prices rise. Now we get to energy. This is where things escalate fast. Oil shipments from the Middle East to Europe depend on this route. If disrupted, supply tightens, markets panic, and prices spike. Not gradually, but suddenly. $10, $20, $30 increases are possible in a short time. And once oil rises, everything follows. This is where it hits home. Higher oil means higher transportation costs, higher production costs, higher food prices. Your groceries go up, your gas bill rises. Shipping costs increase across every industry. Even if you never hear the name Bab el-Mandeb again, you feel it. Now here's where people get this wrong. They think, this mainly affects Europe. And yes, Europe gets hit hard, but the US is not immune, because the US economy is deeply connected to global trade. So what happens? Markets drop, inflation pressures return, supply chains tighten, and the government faces pressure to respond, economically or militarily. Europe is where this becomes dangerous. They rely heavily on Middle Eastern energy, Suez Canal shipping, global imports. A disruption here can trigger energy shortages, industrial slowdowns, economic contraction. This isn't just inconvenience, it's instability. Now zoom out. This isn't just oil. This is everything. Electronics, clothing, machinery, food. When shipping slows, the entire system backs up. Factories wait, retailers run low, prices climb, and suddenly, the global economy feels fragile. Markets don't wait for confirmation. They react instantly. Stocks fall, oil companies surge, gold rises, volatility spikes, and investors move into defensive positions because uncertainty is what markets fear most. At this point, it's no longer just economic. It becomes strategic. Navies deploy, trade routes are protected, tensions rise. Because control of this strait means control of a major piece of the global economy. This is where things get interesting. Because events like this change behavior. Countries start asking, can we rely on these routes? Companies ask, should we restructure supply chains? And over time, the answer becomes clear. The world begins to shift. If disruptions continue, globalization slows down. Countries become more self-reliant. Trade becomes more regional. Costs increase. Efficiency drops. And the world becomes more fragmented. Here's the truth most people overlook. Power isn't just about money. It's about control. And choke points like Bab el-Mandeb are pressure points. Control them, and you influence the global economy. Lose control, and you lose stability. Best case, temporary disruption, weeks. Shipping slows but continues. Oil rises slightly, $5 to $10. Markets stabilize quickly. Minimal long-term damage. This becomes a warning, not a crisis. Mid-case, ongoing disruption, months. Shipping rerouted around Africa. Oil stays elevated, $80 to $110 plus. Inflation rises again globally. Supply chains strained. This becomes a real economic drag. Worst case, full closure plus escalation. No safe passage through strait. Oil spikes, $120 to $150 plus. Global recession risk. Military conflict increases. Trade fragmentation accelerates. This reshapes the global economy. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a much larger system. And right now, that system is under pressure. Because this isn't just about one choke point. It's about a region where tensions are rising, where conflicts are expanding, and where control of trade routes is becoming a strategy. In the ongoing Iran conflict, we're already seeing how powerful these choke points really are. In the Strait of Hormuz, a route responsible for nearly 20% of the world's oil supply, shipping has already been disrupted. Oil prices have surged, and global markets have reacted. But here's where it becomes even more serious. Because this pressure isn't limited to one location. Groups aligned with Iran, like the Houthis, have already shown their ability to target shipping in the Red Sea. And experts are now warning about a two-choke point scenario, Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb, both under threat at the same time. If that happens, this isn't just disruption, it's transformation. Because together, these routes control a massive portion of global oil, a critical share of global trade, the connection between East and West. And if both are affected, the global system doesn't just slow down, it strains. This is how modern economic pressure works, not always through direct confrontation, but through control of infrastructure, shipping lanes, energy flows, financial systems. And that's the real story here. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait isn't just a location on a map, it's a pressure point, one of several. And in today's world, power isn't just about armies, it's about control. Control of movement, control of trade, control of energy. Because when those are disrupted, the effects don't stay regional, they go global. This is Wired Wanderer, exploring the forces shaping the future of our world.